I'm hoping everyone's doing well. We're going to get started in just a minute. If you can do me a favor and just mute your computer, that would be great. You can do that by going, there's a little microphone in your toolbar and it says mute. And if you just click that, there'll be a red line through it. All right, so it's 2 o'clock. Let's get started. My name is Jacqueline Ciano. I'm the Assistant Director at Inspired Instruction, and today we're going to be talking about making the most out of Google applications. So I know that everybody in New Jersey and a lot of other states have kind of been, forced into this virtual learning thing, and for some people it's very, very new. So although this is only going to be about a half hour, what my goal was to kind of make sure that, I can give you an overview of all the stuff that when I first started using Google Classroom, like my go-tos, like stuff I didn't know that I actually could do until later on down the line. I also went ahead and polled some of our consultants, some of my friends who are teachers who are using Google during this time, and just said, hey, what's your, absolute things like you need in order for this to, to work, properly. So I kind of just polled and said, okay, tell me like your go-tos. So I kind of just put together a list of things and best practices. So if you're just starting out with Google applications, I'm hoping this will be a good primer, and this will kind of, give you an overview of, what's out there that maybe you didn't know was out there. And even if you've been using Google for a while, I'm hoping that you'll learn some new stuff today. So there is a chat function. If you do have questions along the way, since I kind of asked everybody to mute so we don't have any ambient noise, I'll definitely answer questions at the end. But if you want to post a question, if you click the little 3 dots that say more, there's a thing that says chat, and that'll open up a little Zoom group chat. So if I'm going over something and you have a specific question that you think is applicable to everybody right away, you can definitely post it because I have it open in the corner and I can kind of address it as I go. If it's something more general, I'll hold it till the end. But I definitely am here to answer all of your questions. So I think we're ready to get started. All right, so here are our goals and objectives for today. Everybody should have gotten a copy of this handout when you registered. So there was an email that went out. Obviously, you guys got it because that's how you logged on. And this was attached. So if you wanted to print it or whatever, if you don't want to, you just have it for you for later. It's something you want to share with other teachers who weren't able to attend today. And if you do know anybody who you think would benefit from this and wasn't able to attend, the recording of this is going to be available on our website starting probably tomorrow. So we can definitely direct them there if you think this would be helpful for them. So in terms of what we're going to go over today, we're going to go over obviously all things Google, docs, slides, drawings, forums, sheets, classroom, chat, and Keep. So again, this is kind of like a little bit of everything having to do with Google. So I'm hoping that you walk away with some new strategies. Like I said, if you feel like at the end that you need a lot more help, like you feel like you and your staff are definitely more like the beginning stages of things, we do offer virtual coaching and virtual workshops. So if you get to the end of this and you're feeling very, very overwhelmed and very confused, we can definitely chat about what the next steps are. All right, so let's get right into this.
Okay, that's all right.
All right, so a lot of this is, I kind of geared it towards best practices based on all these different things. And obviously best practices for, the everyday versus best practices for teachers and administrators are a little bit different. So obviously this is geared towards things that I've used as a teacher when using Google, things that I know my friends who are teachers, our consultants are currently using in regards to these platforms. So for Google Docs, one of the things I really like about Google Docs is that, your students can be typing whatever they're typing. They're typing essays, they're doing a lab report, whatever they happen to be doing, and you can provide real-time feedback, which to me is so important. So what I used to do is I used to have basically all 20 or however many kids are in my class documents open at the same time, so I could kind of click around and see what everybody was working on. It helps you keep track of who's working, who's not working, and it also helps you catch errors before they get too far. Because I always had those one or two kids where they start writing and you're reading it and they're going, oh boy, this isn't even on the right topic. So you can kind of stop them before they get too far. If you see the little red circle up in the corner of that picture, that's the comment feature. And if you click on that, it's going to open up a box and it will say your name. And in that box, you can provide any kind of feedback that you need to. I used to do a lot of grammar and punctuation, a lot of positive praise, like, hey, this is a great introduction. You can clarify directions. If you do have that student that's kind of getting a little bit off topic, you can clarify things there. It also gave the students an opportunity to ask questions. So they might highlight the first sentence and they might write, Dr. Sayano, is this a good thesis statement? And then I could answer their questions right there. And it didn't have to wait until they had handed in the final copy. They were able to kind of have a working, living document the entire time where they were getting consistent feedback. The other thing I really liked to do with Google Docs is you can have students share with each other to do peer review. And I used to do this a lot in my creative writing class where I would assign them 2 peers or 3 peers and say, okay, you're going to share your document with these 3 people. And those 3 people would go into that document and they'd have a rubric or a checklist or something of what they were looking for. And using that comment box, they would be providing real-time feedback as well. And that would be, if you're working in a school right now where there's an assigned time that your kids need to be logged on to your class, so to speak, that's definitely something that everyone can be doing at the same time, synchronously, and you can be making sure that everybody's providing relevant feedback. If you're in a school where you're doing async and the kids can kind of log on to your class whenever you want or whenever they want, it's something they can still do. And because it labels it with their name, it does hold them accountable in terms of what they're posting for their peers. So you might tell them they have to do, 2 positive comments and 1 area for improvement. And you can keep track because you can see what student wrote what. So it does hold them accountable. But I really do like Google Docs for real-time feedback and even async feedback if, from the other students. And again, you don't have to do real-time feedback. You can do it, that night, and this way they can make corrections for the next day, or however you want to do it, so they don't, the whole point is they don't get to the final product and then there's 150 things they need to change. You can kind of help them out as they go. So that would be my best practices for Google Docs. And again, if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to put them in the chat box, and then anything else we can hold to the end and I can do Q&A, live Q&A at the end. One of the other features I really like is Google Slides, which is what this is. This is a Google Slide presentation. I know that just because we're doing virtual learning doesn't mean that like students can't be doing some kind of speaking and listening component. There's no reason why, if they have the technology, that the kids can't be creating presentations, and they could either share it with a peer or you, either via Google Chat or Google Hangouts, however you want to do it. What I'm using now is called Zoom. Zoom right now is free for teachers and for students. That was one of the things they did when this whole coronavirus pandemic broke out, was they made it free. So your students can download this platform, and if you want to have them create a presentation using Google Slides, they can record themselves like I'm doing, and then they can share that link with you. So that's something else that you can do asynchronously. So if you want to have them create, you know, a PowerPoint about a book report, they can either live share it with you on Google Hangouts or Zoom. Zoom does live as well. Or you can have them record it and send it to you, or send it to their peers. You can post it in your Google Classroom, however you want to do it. So I do like that, because I feel like with virtual learning, we sometimes feel a little bit more isolated because, you know, everybody's kind of doing their own thing. And this is a good way to connect with each other. So someone just posted the question, how is Zoom different from Google Hangouts? My big difference is Zoom, you can record. And I think that's, for me, that's huge. Like today, I'm recording this for anybody who is not able to attend. They can still see it and we can share it later on. Google Hangouts is completely live, and there is no way to record it through Google. So for me, this is a big difference. So if I do have students who are working asynchronously, they can create a presentation, record it whenever they want, send it to me, and we don't have to be on the computer at the same time. So in terms of another question, how do I get onto Google Slides? So in terms of Google in general, Google is very easy to use. If you, I can show you real quick on my screen. If you just go to Google in general, and obviously you need to have a Google account, up in this little corner, in these little boxes, or all the Google apps. So if you want to get to any of these things, all you have to do is click on them. And if there's something there that you're looking for that's not there, like some of these things that I talk about may not be in this initial box, all you have to do is type it in the search bar, and then you can connect to it that way. Okay, but Google Slides is what I'm using right now for this presentation. It does look just like PowerPoint. It's a little more simpler version than PowerPoint. It's very easy to use. I had students who had never used even PowerPoint before able to make a Google Slides presentation pretty easily. So it's just the same way that you would set up any other kind of presentation. They pick a background, they add slides, they can add pictures, and then again, depending on how you want it to share it, how you want them to share it, they can just hit the share button and share it with you. You can have them record themselves. There's a lot of different options. So thanks for the questions. Absolutely. If you have any other questions, keep them coming. In terms of what teachers can do with Google Slides, for notes, I mean, we do lose the class discussion and the teacher-led instruction part a little bit when we switch to virtual. So I do think that Google Slides is really helpful for notes. So if you have things that, you know, you obviously need to front load to your students before they can do a certain activity, because obviously we're going to get to the point where you're going to have to present new material. So some people, I know some teachers are still at the point where they're reviewing. Nothing really brand new has come yet because we've only been doing this for a couple of weeks. Depending on how long this goes on for, there's going to be a point where you have to present new material. And it's difficult to do that sometimes virtually. So I feel like Google Slides is great for that, where you can create, as a teacher, you can create notes on Google Slides. You can share it with the students. You can also make different versions. So if you have ELL students, if you have gifted and talented, you can definitely scaffold your notes, make different versions, and share it with individual groups of students. So group A students might get this version of the notes. Group B students might get this version of the notes based on ability level, based on however you want to do it. And then teachers obviously can also use Zoom. I know a lot of my friends who are teachers are doing that now because their schools are async. The kids can log into whatever classes whenever they want during the course of the day. They are creating these Google Slides and then they are recording themselves, basically what I'm doing now, explaining the notes and then sharing it with the students. So they're still getting the teacher-led instruction piece, even though it's not live. So another thing that I like is Google Drawings. So for me, I'm very big into making sure we speak to all ability levels in terms of the types of learners we have. And we do have kids who are visual. A lot of students are visual learners. I'm a visual learner. So Google Drawings is one of the Google apps, and they can use it to make posters. They can use it to make charts and graphs. I think this is particularly helpful for math and science. But as a former ELA teacher, I could definitely see ways that I can use it as well. So let me show you what this looks like. Oh, what happened to my Google? Yes, and the question just came in, is this where you can find equation editor for math? Yes, this is where you can find the equation editor for math. Okay, so the other thing I really like is there's a template gallery for all of these apps. And Google Drawings is no exception. And if you go all the way down to the bottom of the templates, there's an education header. So they have templates already set up if you need ideas on what to do and how to use Google Drawings. So a lot of these are essays, science lab reports. I love, as an English teacher, there's an MLA formatted report, an APA formatted report. So these are templates that your students can use. So let's say I wanted my students to do a book report. So I might pick this template, this book report by Reading Rainbow. And this is the template I want all my students to use. And I like it because it does, again, with the lack of consistent teacher-led instruction because of virtual, I do like that it gives them a template to follow and a format to follow. And all they would do is just fill this in. Now, as a teacher, you can change this template. So let's say you like this, but I really don't want them to talk about why did you choose this book? Maybe that's too simple for your students. Maybe I want them to analyze something. So you just go in and you edit, whatever parts of the question you want to fit your needs. And then you just save it as a new document. So you would go to File, and then you would make a copy of it so you have it. And then you would be able to share that with your students. Another thing that you can do in terms of Google Drawings is I do like that you can have them make charts, and diagrams, word art. You can have them do all that stuff. So if you're teaching math and you have them compiling data in a spreadsheet, they can take that information from the spreadsheet and they would click on where it says here from sheets, and then they could put it into Google Drawings to create a bar graph or a pie graph or whatever. So I do think that's really helpful. I think it's helpful for science too. If they're doing some kind of lab report, they can take the data and put it into an actual chart or graph. In terms of posters, it's basically just a blank canvas. When you open it up, it's a blank piece of paper. So you can have students do some kind of a collage to represent something they read. You can have your students, I used to do one of those activities where if you made a movie version of the book, who would you cast? This would be a great place to do that, where they, find pictures of the celebrity that would, play whatever part, and then underneath they would type up who they would play and why they would play them. This would be a great place to do that. They also can, actually draw. There's drawing tools. So this is definitely something that if you want to speak to your visual students, definitely do some exploring in Google Drawings. question just came in, is Google Drawing an app or is it part of the Google Doc app? So that's a great question. All of these Google things are intertwined. So if I go back to my regular Google homepage, and I go up to that little guy up top of all those little boxes, Google Drawings is not one of the ones that shows up right away. So what I would do is I would go to the search bar, and it comes right up, and you would just click on it, and it takes you right there. But they are all interconnected, so I could cut and paste information. The template comes from Google Docs, but you can use it in Google Drawings. Someone asked before about the equation editor. That is in here as well. I don't remember exactly where it is because I'm definitely not a math person. I apologize, but there is a way to do it. Let's see. You can do diagrams. There's all different types of diagrams we can do. There's lots of different things to play around with in here. And for my person that had the question about the equation editor, I will find out that answer for you. I just don't know off the top of my head because, again, I'm not a math person. If you want them to actually, like, you know, draw, make flow charts, stuff like that, they can do things that way. Again, it's really a blank canvas for these students to play around with and actually create something, as opposed to just writing it, you know, writing something. They can actually make something out of it. Alrighty. My next thing I want to talk about is Google Forms. So Google Forms I really like for a lot of reasons. And one of the things is that it has a lot of templates. And again, I'm a template person because you guys are very overwhelmed right now. A lot of you have kids of your own at home who are doing virtual learning, plus you're trying to take care of your own students. Like I have a 4-month-old and a 2.5-year-old, and they're not even homeschooling. I'm just running mommy's daycare, and it's very overwhelming. So for me, anytime that I can not reinvent the wheel works for me. So with Google Forms, there's a whole bunch of education templates, quizzes, exit tickets, assessments, worksheets. You really can use this for anything. So I know some of my friends who are doing Google right now for their virtual learning are using it as kind of like a check-in to kind of take attendance. So they have an entrance ticket every day that the students have to fill out, and that's basically counting as attendance. So it might just be like, you know, put your name, you know, what's today's date, just something to hold them accountable for actually being there. But you can really use this for any kind of assessment or just like a reading check, anything you want. So Google Forms looks like this. This is the template gallery. So again, I'm a template person. So if I want to just pick something very general, I want to do an assessment. Okay, just to make sure my kids are understanding, you know, what they're supposed to be reading or what they're supposed to be doing. All this stuff is editable. Like you can change the picture, you can put your directions in. I like that you have a variety of different types of questions. You can do multiple choice, you can do multiple answers, you can do short answers, you can do essays, long answers. So all of these things are completely customizable based on, you know, whatever your needs are. So if I was going to do like a reading check, maybe I would have a couple of multiple choice to make sure they understood the content, and then maybe I would have some short answer to have them do some reflection. And when you assign this to the students, when you get their responses will come in, and then if you want to, you can take that information and put it into a spreadsheet. So you can kind of also see like weakness areas, like, oh, you know, the majority of the kids got this question wrong. I definitely want to make sure that I do something else to reteach that. So I do like this as a tool. And again, there's a lot of different uses for it. You can use it as a do now, you can use it as a reading check. You can just make worksheets this way too, as opposed to like scanning a paper copy. You could definitely convert it this way. I told you daily attendance is definitely something that my friends are using it for. I'm just looking at a couple of questions now. Let me see. This says, one of my son's teachers is using can an answer key be created on Google Forms? Yes. So when you actually create the Google form, and you go in and you create your question, so to speak. For the multiple choice ones, you can create an answer. So you would put the check mark, this green check mark next to the correct answer. So at least it will grade some of them for you. The short answers, obviously, you're going to be grading yourself because they can't do that for you. But at least for if you have multiple choice or multiple answers, true, false, anything where there's a very clear right or wrong answer, you can make an answer key so that when the students submit their responses, when you go to the responses page, it will say how many questions they got right, how many questions they got wrong. So that does help you in terms of grading. Other questions. Am I correct in thinking that when we create on Google Apps, all we do is make a copy and share with our students? Yes. So once your classrooms are set up, and I am going to talk about Google Classrooms in a second and how to do that, you just make a copy of whatever you want to make. You create your document, your Google form, your drawing, whatever you're making, and you share it right in your Google Classroom, which I'm going to talk about in a second. So again, thank you for all these questions. They're great. I'm glad this is helpful. All right, Google Sheets. Google Sheets is basically Excel. It looks just like Excel. It is a way to keep track of data. There are templates, again, my templates available for educators on the bottom, attendance, gradebook, etc. So if I go to Google Sheets, and let's say I want to keep track of attendance, I would use the attendance template. You don't have to use the templates, but again, I just find them easier. You put in your students' names. This is a good way to keep track of participation, especially on virtual learning with Google Classroom. If you want to make up your own system, so instead of it being present or not, it could be like a 1 to 5 score of if they participated in class discussions on the virtual classroom. You can do, did they participate in peer reviews? It's just an easy way for you to keep track of everything at a glance in one place. So like you might be using an online gradebook, you might be using Genesis or something like that. I'm not saying don't use that. I'm just saying this might be helpful for that non-graded stuff and keeping track of what the students are doing. So again, there are a lot of things that you can do. It's really for any data whatsoever would be really helpful on the teacher's end to put it in Google Sheets. And then again, you can always take that information and turn it into a chart or something else through Google Drawings. For the students can also use Google Sheets. There's a template here for a pros and cons list. I feel like that would be a great graphic organizer ahead of writing an argumentative essay or a persuasive essay. If they're doing data collection for science or math or whatever, this would be a good place for them to keep their information. I was also thinking as like a resource tracker. If they're doing any kind of research, this would be a helpful place for them to keep their resources in one place. So maybe websites they're using for writing a research paper, or books that they're looking at or anything like that. So you can also keep track, because again, it's hard because we're not there with them. We're so used to being there with the kids. This way you can also see what kinds of resources they're using. But you know what, I kind of don't want you to use Wikipedia. Let's find something else. And again, it just kind of helps hold them accountable and it helps you keep on top of them even though you're not there. Someone just asked, can a class list be uploaded to the attendance template on Google Sheets? Yes, there is a way to import data. If you go to File, Import, that should let you import data. It probably has to be set up a certain way, or it will kind of mess up the formatting, but the formatting takes a few seconds to correct. So you definitely can import data into this. So if you have your class list on an Excel spreadsheet already, then you can definitely import it and it will put it right in here. If you have your class list anywhere, on Microsoft Word, on whatever, you could also just cut and paste them in and then reformat it later. So that's a very simple problem to deal with, but definitely you can import information. All right, let's talk about Google Classroom. Again, remember, this webinar is really like an overall best practices for making the best use of Google Apps. So if you are brand new to Google Classroom, like you haven't created your Google Classroom yet, then I think we definitely should chat about, what other support you need, because this is going to be a very general overview. So we are going to talk about best practices for once you set up your Google Classroom, how to set up classwork, stuff like that. So one of the things that I think is really important is the amount of different things that you can upload to your Google Classroom. And I think when I first started using Google Classroom, I didn't realize how many different things I could do. You can upload assignments. So if you created an assessment in Google Forms, you can upload it here. You can upload just a question like a do now, and everyone has to answer the do now to get credit for the day. Material, you can upload actual documents. So if you have like a PDF of something, you can upload that right there. To me, this reuse post tab is huge. So I was a high school teacher, right? So I taught 3 different classes of junior English, for example. So I had 3 Google Classrooms that looked very similar. So one of the great things for me was that reuse post. I didn't have to continue to retype the same thing 3 times. If you click reuse post, you can choose what you want to move or make a copy of from classroom A to classroom B. So if classroom A, B, and C are all junior English, you can click reuse post and make sure all the same material goes in all 3 classes, and you don't have to sit there and retype everything again. So for me, that was huge and a huge time saver. So in terms of assigning classwork, let me go into my sample classroom. This is my sample classroom. So when you are assigning classwork, you're clicking on the classwork button and you are clicking on create. And again, this is where this thing comes down and all the different options. So you can assign whatever you want. So if I want to assign a question, I post my question. I can make it multiple choice or short answer. I give my instructions. I pick what courses. So when I set it up, if I want to assign this to all my classes, I assign it to all my classes. If I want to scaffold and only assign it to certain students, I can do that way. There's lots of different ways to do this. So I am assigning whatever I am assigning. So, and then it will show up when the kids first log in. And I do like that it shows up by date. So they'll see the newest stuff first. So if you want to put links in here, if you want to add a PowerPoint or link to a Google slide, whatever you want to do, it all comes up right on this home screen when kids log in. So some of the things that I've used that I think are really helpful is I always recommend providing a due date. And this is not so much for the kids, but for me, because when you provide a due date on an assignment, so let's say I create an assignment, if I provide a due date, it's going to show up in my calendar. And for me, that was huge because then I know that by next Friday, I should be looking for and grading these things. If I have a rubric I want to use, I can upload a rubric. The other thing that I found really, really important and helpful was topic. This helps you stay organized because otherwise you're going to have 100 things on your stream and it's going to be a little difficult to find things. So I might want to link everything that's grammar related in one topic. So everything that I assign that has to do with grammar, I would put under the grammar topic. And this way, when I go to look for stuff on the home page, on my stream, it will say all my different topics on the left-hand side, and I can just click, okay, I want to look at the grammar stuff today. Or I want to look at, we're reading Casta di Amontillado. I want to look at that stuff. So I do recommend strongly making topics, and that's for you. And again, the due date's helpful because it comes up on your calendar. So you can look at your calendar and say, okay, this is when stuff is due. This is when I should be looking at stuff. For me, in the beginning, virtual learning was very overwhelming because I just felt like there was a lot of things going on in different places and I had a hard time keeping track. So again, the more I streamlined things, the easier my life became. So with Google Calendar, having everything in one place, with the assign a topic, having everything clumped together by topic so I knew where to look. Anything you create in Google Drive, you can link right there. And you can also put stuff in the class drive folder. And the class drive folder is what the kids can access. So if you want to give them templates, if you want to give them resources, you want to give them NJSLA practice questions, whatever. You put them in the class drive folder, and anything you put in there, the kids can access, which I think is really, really helpful. All right, I have a couple of questions here. Isn't reuse post good for year to year? When I post, I click on all the classes I want to share with. Yes, and this is the other good thing. I remember starting, like if I made stuff this year and I want to reuse it for next year, yes, you can go back and then you can reshare the following year, so you're not reinventing the wheel. Someone else said, I'm in an async virtual learning situation. Would I be able to post a Zoom recording of myself on the classroom to students to view and work on when they log in? Yes, you can, and this is one of the things I love, because I do feel like a lot of us are in the async situation. When you go into your classroom, let me show you. All right, if I'm in my classroom and I'm on the main page, and then I go to classwork, I can either create it and put it in a document. Okay, so I could do it here, and then as the description, I could put the URL or the link. Or the other thing you can do is you could just straight up type it in this box and just attach, hit the add button. So if it's hard drive, if it's saved on your hard drive, the recording, just add it and the kids will be able to access it. So if you want to do, like I know a lot of people are doing daily Zooms, you can do a Zoom, record it the night before, load it, whenever the kids log on the next day, that's the first thing they're going to see, and it's there. All right, let's move on here. I definitely recommend, and this ties in nicely, adding announcements for your class. I am a planner. I don't like to feel rushed. I don't like to feel overwhelmed. So one of the things I really like is you can plan ahead on Google Classroom. If you want to, on a Sunday night, sit down and put your announcements or your Zoom recordings for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you can pick a date that your post is going to appear. So like your Monday stuff will show up on, 6 a.m. on Monday. Your Tuesday stuff will show up, 6 a.m. on Tuesday. So you basically set a calendar for when things are going to happen. And it does help you kind of stay ahead of the game, and it reduces your daily workload. So if you know that what they're working on Wednesday requires links to whatever, and you're doing your prep work on Sunday, not like teachers work on the weekend or anything, but when you're doing your prep work over the weekend, you can set all this up ahead of time. So you're not doing all this on top of responding to students, on top of grading assignments, on top of doing discussions. This stuff is already set up ahead of time. If you want to do a quote of the day, if you want to set up your do nows ahead of time, I do like this post now or plan ahead. And that is when you add an announcement, it will give you the option. Do you want to post it right now, or do you want to post it later? All right, I got a couple other questions coming in here. Can I create a topic folder for previously posted materials for after the fact? Yes, you can. So if you've already started using Google Classroom, and now you want to go back, and now oh my God, I can organize stuff, you can go back into the actual assignment, and once you've created a topic, you can go back retroactively and assign it to a topic. That's totally fine, and it will help you organize. So I remember having to do that because I didn't find out about this till way after I had started teaching using Google Classroom. Other question, can we record ourselves on Zoom without having a meeting? You can have a meeting just with yourself. You don't have to have people in your meeting. So technically it's called a meeting and you're going to record yourself, but no one else has to be there. So yes, you have to have a meeting, but it might be just a meeting of one, and that is totally fine. You record it and then you upload it later. One of the other things I like for Google Classroom is the grade book. So if you assigned, Google Forms or assessments, or even if you assign manual stuff, you can go in and use the Google Classroom gradebook. And again, if you're already using something like Genesis or something else, you don't have to do this. It just helped me keep track. I like that it kept track of my missing work. For me, that was the big thing. So this is actually from my Google Classroom from forever ago, 2017. And I like that it showed like which kids turned things in, which kids didn't, because for me, that kind of helped me stay on them and be like, hey, just so you know, you're missing A, B, C, and D, let's get that done. And again, I feel like in a virtual setting, where we can't be on top of our students like we normally are, this would be very, very helpful. So to get into the Google Gradebook, say that 3 times fast. To get into the Google Gradebook, let me show you. Right on top, it says grades. Okay, so these will be manually done once you have an assignment. So once you go into classwork and you create an assignment, so we'll call this sample assignment. We assign it to all our students, whatever it happens to be, and then I assign it, then it will show up in the gradebook. Okay, so I have 1 student and the grade will go here. So if I am manually grading, I just put the manual grade there. If it's something that is going to be graded through Google Forms or whatever, it should do it automatically for you. So, and again, it's a good way to see who did what and who didn't, especially because we're not actually there physically with them. All right, 2 other quick things that I want to talk about. One is Google Chat. So Google Chat is great, and I think a lot of us have used it for speaking, one-on-one to people. You can definitely individually message people on Google Chat, but one of the things I thought was great that I only recently learned about was creating a room. And a room is basically a group message board. So this is, if you go into Google Chat, and if you look on the left-hand side, you can, if you want to message someone individually, you just type their name in where that red circle is. If you want to create a room, you click where it says create room, you add whatever people you want. And it might not be your whole class. It might be maybe your struggling students that need extra resources. Maybe you create a room just for them. Or maybe you're gifted and talented kids who need extra support, and it's stuff that you don't want to necessarily post on Google Classroom for everybody, but some kids might need it. So you can definitely create a room and discuss or reach out to small groups of kids if you want. You can do group messages this way. You can do individual messages this way. For me, this was definitely something that I used to be like, hey, just so you know, you're missing assignment A, B, or C. Let's try to take care of this by whenever. Someone just said, would this still work if the students log in at different times? Yes, so it's kind of like a running chat. So they'll see it whenever they log in. So if they go into the chat, when they log into Google, they should see that they have a chat message and they'll be able to go in and see it. So everyone does not need to be online at the same time in order to use this. So again, I like this. This is a very easy way for them to, for you to communicate with your students. You can have them communicate with each other this way, but I would always have myself in there as well, just to kind of monitor what they're doing. So if you have them working on some kind of group assignment, maybe each group gets their own sample room and you're in there too to kind of monitor what they're doing. And someone just asked, where would they see the chat message? So you would have to just tell the kids to open up chat. I have it set up on my computer that when I open up my Gmail, it shows up in the bottom corner. But you could have, you could even link Google Chat in your classroom. So as a link, just put, make sure you check, your Google Chat today or something like that as an announcement to make sure that they would see it. And you can link it. So if you go to your regular Google page, like your Google home page, let me do that. Chat is one of the options right here. So you would just click on the chat button and they would open it up that way. And if you want, you would cut and paste the link and then put it in, put it right into your classroom as maybe your announcement. Like, hey, your announcement for Monday might be, I sent everyone individual messages over the weekend, make sure you check them and respond. Like, and that could be, your check-in for the day. Someone said, I think this is good for intervention group. Absolutely. I think the chat, again, depending if you want to do individual, small groups, whole groups, however, I think this is good for any kind of specialized situation or anything that's scaffolded. All right, and the last thing I want to talk about is Google Keep. Now, Google Keep is really a for teachers thing. I mean, you can encourage the students to use it, but for me, this was my lifesaver. Google Keep is basically a gigantic Post-it note. And it's a way for you to keep a running list of things you need to do, things you need to grade, whatever. And it comes up when you open up your calendar. It's a little yellow light bulb that you click on, and that is Google Keep. And Google Keep basically is a place for you to keep your own notes. And I like having it next to my calendar because if I'm linking everything together, where in my Google Classroom, everything has due dates. So I know that on Friday, I have book reports coming in. I make myself a note that even if I'm not in my calendar, I can open up Google Keep from anything in Google and say, oh, right, I gotta make sure I look at those book reports. Or a student asks you to look at a peer review they got, make yourself a note. Because I don't know about you, but my life is Post-it notes everywhere, different things. My Post-it notes for home, my Post-it notes for work. This kind of gives you one place to keep everything, and you can kind of cross them off as you go. If you have students who are very disorganized, you can definitely encourage them to use this as an organizational tool where they can keep track of, okay, Monday's list, what do I have to do for my classes on Monday? I have to do this homework. I have to write this essay. I have to respond to this discussion post question. You know, all these different things that if you have kids that are disorganized, you absolutely can encourage them to use it. I just think for me this is a lifesaver because I still use it now. Someone also said about Google Chat, it limits the amount of emails you're getting. I think that's huge because I think it's a lot easier to respond in real time on Google Chat than to have to respond to 9 million emails. And someone else said, my son did virtual book clubs using Google Chat, and I think that's awesome. Someone asked, where can I find Keep? Let me show you where you can find Keep. So if I go back, okay, so it does not show up here, right, when you first log in. So I'm going to just go to Google, because yours isn't set up the same way as mine. So I want to make sure you know how to find it. Google Keep. So anything you can't find that I went over today, definitely just Google search it. Google Keep, there's my to-do list, okay? And I can, you know, make sure that I put it wherever. So I have mine set up, again, so it's next to my calendar. You can set up your settings, you know, how you want it to look, and stuff like that. You can have multiple sticky notes. So if you teach multiple classes, you can have a little note for each class, however you want to do it. So mine looks like, I have mine set up like this. So when I open up my calendar, there's a little Google Keep icon all the way on the right so that I can see it when I'm in my calendar, which I like. Do you feel this would be applicable to younger students as well? I do definitely feel like younger students, as long as they can type, they can use any of these things. And if, you know, if they're having a parent or guardian help them, then the parent or guardian can be the one, you know, responding or asking questions. Absolutely. Okay. All right. So I know this was a very general overview. This was really just best practices, you know, and stuff that I wish I had known when I had first started using Google. So I hope that you got a whole bunch of stuff out of this. If you wind up having a lot of questions, just reach out. I have my email there. I have my phone number there, and let me know what, you know, you still need help with. If you are in a district and you have a lot of teachers that you feel like would benefit from a much more in-depth workshop, we do offer virtual workshops. We do offer virtual PD, virtual coaching, and that's definitely something I'm more than willing to talk to you about. I know we have some schools where they've never used Google Classroom before, and they really needed a lot more help getting set up, stuff like that. So that might be something that would be really beneficial to your school by contacting us and setting up something where we can work just with your staff to set up their Google Classrooms or whatever you need help with. If you're a teacher and you're looking for virtual lesson plans and virtual activities, our website, there's a free downloads button on our website. There's, I think, over 50 K through 12 lesson plans right now that you can download for free. Our Facebook page on the bottom, we are uploading virtual resources and lesson plans every single day. So definitely like that. And there's lots of stuff out there. If you're an administrator, pass this along to your teachers if they need help. So definitely just, you know, use everything that's out there because no one needs to reinvent the wheel right now. Just, you know, we gotta help each other out as much as we can. So I have a couple more questions here. Will participants be able to receive PD certificates for today's webinar? Yes, absolutely. If you need a PD cert for today, just email me and I will definitely get you one. Not a problem. Other questions. My students do not have computers at home. If they don't have computers at home, then this would be for school use only. They can access it from cell phones or from tablets. It doesn't necessarily have to be a computer. But the Google apps are virtual only, so they need access to some kind of technology. All right, if anybody else has any questions, definitely feel free to ask me now. If not, it was wonderful having everybody here. I'm hoping you got some good stuff out of this. If you have follow-up questions, definitely email me. If you're an administrator and you want to set up more training for your staff, call my number there. And I hope everybody stays safe and healthy. Thank you so much.